There's this moment that happens to all of us. Someone walks up, extends their hand, introduces themselves with a smile. You're present, you're engaged, you're looking right at them. And then, before their hand even leaves yours, something horrifying occurs. Their name is completely gone, not fading, not fuzzy, just erased, like it was never spoken at all. You're still nodding, still maintaining that polite expression, but internally, pure chaos. You're desperately rewinding the last few seconds, searching for any trace of that sound. Nothing. Just empty space where critical information should be sitting. And here's what you need to understand right now, before you spiral into self-judgment. This isn't about being rude. It's not a sign that your brain is deteriorating. You're not becoming forgetful or inconsiderate. What's actually happening in those brief seconds is far more complex and, honestly, far more interesting than simple memory failure. Before we go deeper into what's really going on in your mind, I need you to do something. If you've ever felt like your brain operates differently than everyone else's, if you're tired of surface-level explanations that don't actually explain anything, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what we explore here isn't the usual recycled advice. We're going into the real mechanisms behind why you do what you do. The truth is, your mind isn't randomly glitching. Modern psychology loves to throw around terms like cognitive overload or attention deficit, but there's a much deeper pattern at work here. Over 100 years ago, a Swiss psychiatrist named Carl Jung proposed something unsettling. He suggested that we don't accidentally forget. We forget because some hidden part of our mind deliberately chose not to record the information. Your unconscious isn't passive. It's actively filtering, selecting, rejecting. Think of your conscious awareness as a guarded territory. Everything that enters, every name, every detail, every piece of data has to pass through security first. When a name doesn't stick, it's not because the space was full. It's because the guard at the gate threw it back out. So the real question isn't, why can't I remember names? The real question is, why did my unconscious decide this person wasn't worth filing away? Let me explain how this works. When you meet someone new, especially in social situations, almost all of your mental energy gets consumed by something Jung called the persona. This is the social mask you wear, the version of yourself you present to the world, the polite professional, the friendly acquaintance, the person who has it all together. When you're shaking hands and making eye contact, your brain isn't actually focused on the other person. It's monitoring you. Is my posture right? Does my handshake feel confident? Am I smiling too much or not enough? Do I look interested? Your entire system is busy maintaining the performance of being someone worth knowing. The actual information coming from the other person, including their name, is secondary data. Your behavior, your image, your social survival takes absolute priority. Your brain, forced to choose between looking good and storing information, will always choose survival first. You didn't hear their name because in that precise moment, you were the only person that mattered in the room. This isn't selfishness, it's a protection mechanism. The more nervous or uncertain you feel, the heavier that mask becomes. And the heavier the mask, the less room there is for anyone else's reality to get through. But it goes even deeper than social anxiety or simple distraction. Jung believed that every interaction involves more than just two people talking. It's two unconscious minds scanning each other beneath the surface. Before words are even exchanged, your intuition is already reading the situation. Tiny facial movements, energy, tone, presence. If your intuition senses that this person holds no future value for you, or worse, if they represent some kind of threat to your psychological stability, your mind won't bother tagging the file. Consider this. You almost never forget the name of someone you're attracted to. You almost never forget the name of someone who frightens you. You almost never forget the name of someone offering you a massive opportunity. In those situations, emotion burns the name into your memory instantly. The forgetting happens in neutral territory, the mundane, the polite but meaningless exchange. Jung would say your forgetting is actually a form of brutal honesty. Your conscious mind is saying, "Nice to meet you," while your unconscious is saying, "This encounter doesn't matter. Don't waste resources on this label." Here's where it gets fascinating. The people who are often most empathetic, The ones who feel atmospheres and pick up on subtle emotional currents are frequently the worst with names. Why? Because they're reading the essence of the person, not the label. A name is just a social tag. It's arbitrary. Michael or Jennifer tells you absolutely nothing about the soul standing in front of you. If you're someone who operates on intuition and deeper perception, you're probably absorbing the vibe. You remember that they seemed sad even though they were smiling. You remember they felt intimidating. You remember the energy they carried into the room. You're processing profound data about who this human being actually is. The name is just surface static. You filtered it out to focus on what actually matters. Now we need to talk about something uncomfortable. Jung described the shadow as the dark, hidden side of your personality, the parts you deny or suppress. Sometimes you forget a name because the person in front of you activates something in your shadow. Maybe they possess a quality you've repressed in yourself. Perhaps they're extremely outspoken and you've spent years silencing your own voice. Maybe they're confident in a way that triggers your hidden insecurity. That subtle irritation or discomfort causes your mind to recoil. You want distance from them. Forgetting their name becomes a passive form of psychological rejection. It's your psyche saying, "You don't exist in my world." And because it happens unconsciously, it feels accidental. You say, "Oh, I'm terrible with names," but the deeper truth might be that your shadow simply refused entry. This mechanism actually serves you. If we remembered every single person we encountered, our minds would collapse under the weight. Forgetting is necessary for survival. But when it becomes chronic, when it starts interfering with your life and relationships, it signals something's off balance. It suggests you're either too trapped inside your own performance, living in a hall of mirrors where no one can reach you, or you're so disconnected from concrete reality that you're floating in pure abstraction. Modern society expects us to function like computers, instantly filing and retrieving data. But you're not a machine. You're a biological being with a soul that operates on meaning, not data processing. And this creates constant tension. You're expected to behave like a database while actually functioning like a living, breathing organism that prioritizes emotional significance over raw information. And if you're still watching, if this is resonating with something deep inside you, do yourself a favor. Subscribe to this channel, not because I'm asking nicely, but because you clearly understand that there's more happening beneath the surface than most people are willing to acknowledge. You're here because shallow explanations don't satisfy you anymore. Stay here. Different personality types handle this problem in completely different ways. If you're someone who processes reality through your five senses, what Jung called a sensation type, you might forget the name but remember the red shirt they wore, the cologne they had on, the texture of their handshake. The name is abstract. The sensory experience is real. You might leave a conversation saying, "I met that person with the scar who smelled like coffee," but have no idea if their name was Tom or Tim. The sensory details create a vivid impression, a full picture of the encounter. But the name, being just a sound without physical presence, doesn't register the same way. Your brain is collecting tangible data, building a sensory profile of the person. To you, they become the tall one with the rough hands, or the woman in the blue jacket who laughed loudly. These descriptions feel more real, more accurate than any name ever could. On the other hand, if you're an intuitive type, someone who looks for patterns and future possibilities, you're even more prone to this specific form of amnesia. When intuitives meet someone, they're not seeing a person. They're seeing a concept, a potential ally, a possible threat, a puzzle to solve. They're looking through the person, not at them. The name is surface detail, like noticing the paint color in a house you're considering buying. You don't care about the paint. You care about the foundation. Your brain discards the name because it's focused on the structural integrity of the human in front of you. You're asking yourself unconscious questions. What is this person's role in the larger pattern? How do they fit into my understanding of the world? What do they represent? These abstract considerations consume all available mental bandwidth. The name becomes irrelevant noise in the face of more important existential data. But Jung goes even further with the concept of complexes. These are emotionally charged clusters of memories in your unconscious. Sometimes you forget a name not because you're distracted, but because the name itself triggers a microscopic defense response. Imagine you had a childhood bully named David. 30 years later, you meet a wonderful, kind person named David. You smile, shake hands, and 5 seconds later, his name vanishes. Why? Because your unconscious heard David, linked it to old pain, and immediately censored it to protect you. You're not forgetting a word. You're avoiding a micro-trigger. Your psyche is constantly protecting you from potential emotional distress, even when that distress is completely irrational. The new David is nothing like the old David, but your unconscious doesn't care about logic. It cares about keeping you safe, so it erases the trigger before it can activate the old wound. This happens so fast, so automatically, that you don't even notice the protection mechanism at work. There's also what I call the shadow of authority. People often forget the names of those they perceive as superior or secretly envy. If you meet someone who's accomplished exactly what you want to accomplish, your shadow, the part holding your jealousy and unlived potential, might act out by erasing their name. You're unconsciously leveling the playing field, stripping them of their title. It's a tiny, invisible act of rebellion. You're not being malicious. Your unconscious is protecting your ego from feeling small by saying, "You're not that important to me," even when consciously you think they're very important. This creates an interesting internal conflict. Part of you wants to remember, wants to connect, wants to learn from this person, but another part, the shadow part, refuses to give them that power. By forgetting their name, you maintain a sense of equality, even superiority. You're unconsciously saying, "I don't need to remember you, you need to remember me." Then there's the evolutionary angle. Throughout most of human history, we didn't use names the way we do now. We recognized people by tribe, role, energy. Names as we use them today are a relatively recent bureaucratic invention. Your primitive brain, the ancient operating system Jung was fascinated by, is wired for face recognition, threat detection, emotional resonance. It's not designed for assigning arbitrary vocal sounds to specific faces. When you struggle with names, you're experiencing a conflict between your ancient biological hardware and modern social software. Your brain is essentially saying, "I know who this is. I don't need the code word." This creates internal friction. You have the social you desperately trying to be polite, and the animal you that simply doesn't care about labels. Your ancestors didn't introduce themselves with names in formal settings. They knew each other by presence, by action, by relationship. The hunter, the elder's daughter, the one who saved my life. These descriptions carried weight, meaning, context. A modern name like Steve carries nothing. It's an empty container. Your ancient brain recognizes this emptiness and dismisses it as unimportant. Notice this. You almost never forget gossip. If someone whispers, "That person over there lied on their resume," you'll remember that forever. Why? Because that information has survival value. It tells you about trustworthiness. The name Steve has zero survival value. Your brain is ruthlessly efficient. It only keeps what keeps you alive or gives you advantage. Think about the last time this happened. I'm willing to bet the moment you forgot the name was the exact moment you started rehearsing what you'd say next. This is ego inflation. When your ego expands to fill the entire space, there's no room for anyone else. You're not listening. You're waiting to speak. You're running lines in your head. The other person is just a prop in your internal movie. Jung believed genuine connection requires lowering the ego, surrendering. When we're in high ego alert mode, trying to impress or be liked, we become impenetrable. Information bounces off. There's a pattern here. Some of you remember faces perfectly but can't recall names. Others remember names but wouldn't recognize the face later. It's rarely both. This split reveals how your internal system is wired. Face rememberers are visual processors. They store images, expressions, the unique geometry of a human face. Name rememberers are auditory or linguistic processors. They hear the sound, connect it to meaning, file it away as language. Neither is better or worse. They're just different cognitive strategies. But recognizing which one you are helps you understand your own mind's preferences and limitations. Here's where it gets darker. Jung suggested that chronic forgetfulness, not just of names but of appointments, promises, keys, is a sign of psychic entropy. Your energy isn't flowing outward into the world. It's trapped inward, circling in loops of internal dialogue. You're so consumed by your own thoughts, daydreams, or anxieties that the external world is becoming ghost-like. The people you meet are becoming phantoms. You shake their hand, but you're not actually present. You're a ghost in the room. This dissociation is defense against an overwhelming world. By not learning names, you keep the world at arm's length. You prevent intimacy, because once you name something, you have a relationship with it. If you keep people nameless, they remain strangers, and strangers can't hurt you. This is protective armor for sensitive souls. It's not stupidity, it's defense. But this armor is heavy. It isolates. It creates a reality where you're the only real character and everyone else is background blur. Eventually, this leads to unreality, a sense that you're drifting through life without ever truly grasping it. You become a spectator in your own existence, watching scenes unfold but never fully participating. The world feels distant, muffled, like you're viewing everything through thick glass. Jung's solution wasn't memory tricks. He didn't tell patients to use mnemonics or repeat names 10 times. He told them to wake up, integrate the shadow, look at why they're rejecting the world. He understood that the symptom, the forgetting, was just a signal pointing to something deeper, a disconnection, a retreat, a refusal to fully engage with the messy, unpredictable reality of other human beings. So how do we actually fix this? How do we use these psychological insights to overcome our resistance and start remembering? It requires a shift in consciousness, not a technique. It requires moving from the persona, the mask, to the self, the center. When you operate from the self, you're no longer performing, you're witnessing, and the witness remembers everything. The moment you stop trying to be interesting and start being interested, your memory opens up. This is what Jung called the flow of libido, psychic energy. When your energy is stuck in your own head worrying about your impression, the bridge to the other person is broken. But when you push that energy outward, when you become genuinely curious about the mystery standing in front of you, the name sticks effortlessly. You have to stop treating the name as a label and start treating it as a symbol. The unconscious thinks in symbols, images, myths, not text. Here's the strategy for intuitive types who struggle. Don't try to remember the sound, visualize it. If you meet Rose, don't store the letters R-O-S-E. Flash an image of a red flower in your mind. If you meet Mark, imagine a check mark on his forehead. If the name has no meaning, invent one. Connect the sound to a weird, vivid image. This works because you're translating a boring left brain word into a vibrant right brain archetype. You're speaking your unconscious's language. You're hacking the gatekeeper. By giving the name visual weight, you're telling your primitive brain, this isn't noise, this is a totem, this matters. The key is making the association bizarre enough that it sticks. Normal, logical connections don't lodge in memory as effectively as strange, emotionally charged ones. If you meet someone named Lily and you just think flower, it might slip away. But if you imagine a giant lily growing out of the top of their head, petals falling onto their shoulders, that image has sticking power. Your brain remembers the weird, the unusual, the emotionally vivid. But there's deeper work here. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You have to confront the part of you that simply doesn't care. Next time you meet someone and feel that fog rolling in, catch yourself. Admit right in that moment, I'm drifting. I'm judging this person as irrelevant. That moment of radical honesty is powerful. By bringing the rejection from shadow into light, you disarm it. You can then consciously choose to re-engage. You can say to yourself, I'm going to honor this person's existence by holding their name. It becomes spiritual practice, discipline of the soul. It's no longer about manners. It's about expanding your consciousness to include another human being. Every time you remember someone's name, you're practicing presence. You're saying, you exist, you matter, I see you. And this practice has ripple effects. When people feel seen, genuinely seen, They open up. Conversations deepen, connections form, opportunities emerge. The simple act of remembering someone's name can completely change the trajectory of a relationship. It's a signal that you are actually there, actually paying attention, actually interested in who they are beyond what they can do for you. Remember synchronicity. Jung believed there are no accidents. What if the person whose name you're about to forget is exactly the messenger you need right now? By dismissing them, by letting their identity slip away, you might be missing a vital piece of your own puzzle. The universe might be introducing you to a guide, a partner, a lesson, and your ego is too busy checking its reflection to notice. When you start viewing every introduction as potential synchronicity, your attention shifts. You lean in. The possibility sharpens your senses. The name becomes a key, and we rarely lose keys to doors we actually want to open. Think about the moments in your life when someone unexpected changed everything. A casual conversation that led to a career opportunity. A random introduction that became a lifelong friendship. These moments only happen when you're present enough to recognize them. So here's what I need you to do. If this video showed you something about yourself you didn't fully understand before, if you recognized your own patterns in what we've discussed, leave a comment below. Tell me which part hit hardest. Are you the anxious performer or the abstract intuitive? And if you know someone who constantly forgets your name, send them this video. They need to see it. But more importantly, subscribe. Because this is just the beginning of understanding how your mind actually works. The people who subscribe aren't looking for quick fixes. They're looking for truth. Be one of them. Stop beating yourself up. You're not broken. You're a complex system running ancient software in a modern environment. Your brain prioritizes survival, emotion, and essence over bureaucratic labels. That's a strength, not weakness. But it's a strength that needs direction. You see deeper than surface details. You read energy, intention, truth. These are valuable abilities. But they need to be balanced with the practical skill of engaging with the concrete world, including the simple act of remembering what people call themselves. You have the capacity to remember everyone. But first, you have to decide to leave your own island. You have to be willing to drop the mask, silence the noise of your anxiety, and step into the reality of the other person. This requires vulnerability. It requires admitting that other people matter, that their presence affects you, that you're not completely self-sufficient. For some, especially those who've built walls to protect themselves, this is terrifying. But it's also liberating. Next time someone says, "Hi, take a breath. Look them in the eye. Ignore your internal monologue. See the human being, not the social obligation. Turn their name into an image. Watch how your memory, which you thought was terrible, suddenly becomes a steel trap. Notice how different the interaction feels when you're actually present instead of performing. It was never about capacity. It was always about connection. It's time to stop forgetting and start witnessing. The world is full of characters, and every single one has a name that unlocks a story. Don't let those stories fade into background noise. Pay attention. Be present. Remember, the next person you meet might change your life. Don't miss them because you were too busy being yourself. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to admit. We forget names when we've already decided someone doesn't matter. And we decide someone doesn't matter when we're too afraid to let them in. Break that pattern. Choose presence. Choose connection. Choose to remember. Your life will expand in ways you can't predict when you finally start seeing the people around you as real, as important, as worthy of the simple dignity of being remembered.